My name is Karen, and online I write under the name Karen McFly.
Karen McFly. That's right.
From Back to the Future.
Yeah, I've just come back.
And Adam, what do? You do anything aside from drink with us?
The conference is the first actual activism, boots on the ground things. Usually I just do online stuff. I have a YouTube channel, although I don't make any content. I only fear phobophobia. But one day I'll make content, but overall it's just mostly online stuff, like networking with people and that sort of thing.
And you're in some of the groups?
I'm in a number of groups, like Free Egalitarians.
You're both in Free Egalitarians, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what other groups are you both in?
Obviously the Honey Badger group.
Were you on the Honey Badger group before the Free Egalitarians group?
Actually, I think I've only just been. I've been following Honey Badgers for a long time, and it's only recently I've been on that the Honey Badger group, and it was because of Paul Negebauer or whatever his name is.
Neubauer.
Yeah, him. Because I noticed he was on it from Free Egalitarians. So, yeah.
All right.
So how did you get into men's issues? And I'm gonna look at Brian.
You first.
Oh gosh.
How'd you get into men's issues? How'd you find it? Why?
How many days do you have?
Why do you waste your time with us?
No, this is the most useful time I spend. But how did I get into it? I didn't have a red pill moment. All my life I felt that how gender relations were presented in the mainstream was not quite matching up with reality. And also I noticed that in the mainstream it's always about women. And I was always looking for something about men, but I couldn't find anything. One day I was finding something like male studies or men's studies, but then I found out it was feminism. It was because normal feminism just implies that men are evil, but this male studies or men's studies, it said it on tin, men are evil. So I thought, okay, no, that's not the thing. And then actually when Elliot Rodgers happened and this Twitter thing, yes, all women, I couldn't ignore it anymore because I felt really ashamed as a woman that these women were speaking in my name and saying, yes, all women are afraid of men and all women are afraid to travel on public transport and things like that. And at that time I had also just gotten a job in a software company in translation. I don't do software, but in the translating for them from German to English. And so most of my colleagues were male and they were really nice and so supportive. And also I was commuting 1 hour on the train in the morning, 1 hour going back, and the men were really courteous on the train. And I felt that was really unfair, that was what's being said about them. And I wasn't afraid of them, and maybe I just imagined it, but sometimes I felt like the men were intentionally trying not to sit next to women, which I could understand if people were saying all women are afraid of men, and I felt really ashamed of this. So I went on Facebook and commented on the Guardian page and on BuzzFeed and everywhere that I didn't agree with these things. And then I saw a comment someone mentioned Vaughan Farrell's book, Myth of Male Power, and I thought, this sounds interesting. So I looked it up on Amazon and then on YouTube. And I found an audiobook version of his book and I listened to it and I was blown away. I thought, this is reality. Finally someone is seeing reality. And then I found Karen Stern and I was totally taken in by her because I thought, great, I'm not the only woman anymore who thinks this way. Of course, I didn't know all the facts that she was saying, but otherwise I had always felt like this way, like she was talking. And I also found her I found her really empowering for women, whereas feminists, I don't find them empowering. They always talk about women empowerment, but they are instilling in women just a sense of victimhood, and that's not empowering. I found her empowering, and actually listening to her videos over the last 3 years and to all the Honey Badger shows with everyone else in it, that's really helped me also with some self-esteem issues, because it's always about what you can do about a problem and not how the world, I have to steal from Alison, how the world acts on you, but more how you can act and how you can determine your own situation and make it better. I find this really helpful and empowering in my everyday life. Yes, and apart from the Honey Badgers, I found Paul Elam's videos really helpful. I won't go too much into this, but what he talked about in his experience as a counselor in addiction counseling, in substance addiction counseling with women, where he said, which was coincidentally the first video I watched of his, where he said that the way they treated women there, taking away all responsibility for them and saying that society or men or someone was responsible for their addiction. And he noticed that this wasn't actually helping these women. This I found very moving that he notices, because I've seen how addicted women are being treated. I don't find it helpful for them. I never found it helpful, and hearing that from a professional, it meant the world to me. Yeah,
Wow.
so these are just few of the reasons. I think I will stop now.
No, that's fine.
But
That's quite a bit.
when someone asks me why I'm interested in the men's rights movement, or also Paul, he asked me how come I, as a woman, am interested in the men's rights movement, I find this a strange question, because I have about 50,000 reasons.
Go ahead.
Well, much like Karen's, you can't exactly sum it into just a normal sentence. I can best describe it with an anecdote about maybe a month ago. I came to an epiphany, and in hindsight, it was the most obvious thing in the world, although at the time it wasn't. I'm somebody who suffers from clinical depression, and it's every once I call it, I don't know, maybe the black storm. Every once in a while, it will descend on you, and you'll just think horrible, and sometimes only lasts a few hours. Well, about a month ago, it happened for about maybe 5 hours, and everything was horrible. And I was thinking to myself, if one day I was ever going to commit suicide, what would be my final regret? In this point in my life, what would my regret be? And I thought of three things, one after the. No, I thought of something, and I refuted. I thought, no, I couldn't do that, or I wouldn't do that, so refuted it. And I can't remember what they were, but I thought of a few things, refuted them, got to the fourth one, and I couldn't refute it, and I came to a sudden realization. And my final regret was I grew up throughout my childhood without my father. And I grew up in a single mother household. I didn't have any male role models, not an uncle, not a teacher, or anything. And I was basically raised by a radical feminist who didn't wear the label of feminist. Basically, I was raised to think of my father as a monster, while simultaneously being routinely told that you remind me so much of your father. So inevitably, when I grew up, I started hating myself. I started hating masculinity, and it sent me down a very dark path, because you almost desire that father figure, and you inevitably you will find it in the first place you can. Went pretty far, and eventually, it sent me in a bad direction, and I eventually moved away from that. And one day, just randomly, I was looking for answers, and it turned. I didn't have to look for it, but it just turned up on my doorstep, and that was randomly. I don't know how, but in the recommendation of YouTube, who long behold, Karen Strong, in the Feminism and the Disposable Male video, and it was almost like being I don't know, maybe kicked in the stomach. It was just like. It's like your whole childhood has been a lie. Your reality has just crumbled, and that was probably my red pill moment within a 3-week period. And after that, I started learning more. Started watching other videos. I started listening to AVFM radio and the Honey Badgers since the beginning, and the Voice of York. And I've just been looking into these issues from then.
Oh wow. That's a great story. It reminds me of sort of my own background. So, how do you guys now you've come and you physically put yourself in the situation where you're hanging around other people that you've only seen on YouTube, or you've read their writings or what have you. What did you guys think of the conference?
The conference was just amazing. It was finally putting a face to people that I've only ever interacted with online, and so that's people like Adam, and also it was meeting the YouTube personalities like the Honey Badgers and Paul Edam and Karen Strawn and Janice Fairmango, Janet Bloomfield in person, and realizing they're actually real. Because when you listen to people on YouTube, of course you see them, but I don't know, it was quite amazing to finally meet everyone. And actually, I think I was very nervous on Friday, and I think one reason I was nervous was maybe also because I was worried that in reality people might not be as great as I thought they were, but they turned out to be even sweeter. And so I'm just really happy right now. I had some amazing conversations. It was a great weekend, and yeah, just a really good community. I have to say that I find the men's rights community is really a community.
Yeah.
I feel just really welcome here and accepted, and I don't have to worry about what I'm saying being misinterpreted in some way and yeah, something negative being made out of it. I feel people here really, they look for the good in people, where sometimes I find, it's my experience at least, of feminists, like only in the last few years we had this word microaggressions, but I think even before feminists, they were looking for people being racist or homophobic or whatever, and reinterpreting something someone said to make it sound like a negative thing. But here no one does that. Yeah, people are just really looking for the good in each other, and I find this really, yeah, good atmosphere.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I mean, pretty much the same thing. I mean, as I can never pronounce his name, the Indian guy,
Anil Kumar.
Yeah, him. What he said in regards to it, there's a hell of a difference being part of a group online of 200 people versus being in a room with 200 people. You know, the face-to-face interaction makes a hell of a difference. And well, I mean, essentially, you know, I've been looking forward to this for months. I've followed many of these people for years, and when you can actually, because when you're on your computer, even though you're speaking with other people, you are still in a room by yourself, and even though you know there's other people out there, psychologically, it's almost, you still feel like, well, I'm the only one. Now, when you're in a room with other people who will face to face, well, then it does bring home to you, well, no, I'm not alone. And you shouldn't be afraid to, you know, things are changing. These issues, they're politically incorrect, but they are correct. And it shouldn't be afraid. You know, it's ridiculous to be afraid to speak about these issues when they're just, it's just rational. So I think that the conferences just like this are vitally important to bring these issues to surface.
Right. Of all of the speakers that you heard, can you name your favorite of the presentations? No? Is it just
Absolutely not.
you just don't want to be unfair, or is it because it's too hard?
No, it's just it's impossible because everybody, in their own right, contributed something valuable.
All right. What do you think?
Well, I mean, well, as she said, they all brought something. I mean, that's a good thing about this. There is actual diversity of, you know, there's multifaceted issues. There's people who specialise in each individual area. Who my favourite one was? Well, it's difficult.
Just say that you have a favorite doesn't mean the others weren't good.
Yeah. Well, now
it's maybe the one that you have the most difficult time forgetting. Like, if you think about the conference,
okay,
which one of them
all right, the two that I think, in terms of reshareability, that I think that I thought either stood out to me, and I think that would speak more to the layman who has no idea about this, was probably Lucian's one, and the one that was on circumcision. I think those two were probably out. I mean, not necessarily the speakers, but just the presentations themselves. I think those were, for me anyway, the two good, the ones that stand above the rest.
Okay.
Karen, and maybe Janice Fliamengo's one. That was a very good one too.
Hers was good. You look like you're thinking about one.
I'm trying to think, and I was going through the presentations in my mind, and with a lot of people, I knew what I was expecting because I've been watching them on YouTube for the past 2 years, like Janice Fliamengo, Paul Elam, Karen Strawn. Yeah, so I'm trying to focus on the presentations that were actually really new to me. And there I would say I was really impressed by Martin Daubny's. Because it had quite a lot of depth that you don't at first expect when you hear about the topic.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And I will definitely rewatch that when it comes out on video.
Yes.
It was quite fascinating. Maybe I might even write to him because I had some thoughts about it afterwards.
All right. How did you guys find you? Well, you may have already answered this question, but just to briefly, how did you guys find Honey Badger Radio? Was it through Karen?
I'm pretty sure through Karen that I watched her video definitely before first, and then I saw the recommendation on YouTube. But I was hooked instantly.
Okay.
Well, I mean, as I said, yeah, it was through Karen, but I've been watching it since the founding of it. I mean, after about maybe 6 months of being subscribed to Karen and going through all of her videos, I started noticing she would post the odd one about AVFM radio and other things with Alison Tiemann, and I thought, on Blog Talk Radio, and I thought, oh, well, I've got nothing else to do, I might as well give it a listen. And I started listening to AVFM radio, and I think maybe after 3 months of listening to it, that's when the Honey Badgers were founded. So that's how I came across it.
And do you guys both still watch the Honey Badgers? Or listen?
I do occasionally. However, in the past maybe 3 months or so, it's not just the Honey Badgers. It's pretty much all of YouTube. I've been doing this now for 5 years, and I've listened. There's most of the time I've reached a point now where I've watched it. I've been listening to all these things for so long that there's very little that I hear that I haven't already heard 100 times before. So I do watch the occasional one, but I'm almost kind of fed up being the consumer, rather get into a creating role, doing something. I don't know, anything. So.
And you still watch, right?
I still watch. I wait every Friday because it's on Saturday, on Thursday night. But as I live in Germany, on Friday morning I try to download it, or sometimes Friday afternoon when the download link becomes available.
Although I did used to watch it pretty much every episode, although eventually it got to the point where things changed, and then I just watched the main show. But there was a time for maybe 2-3 years that I just watched every episode.
Yeah. And do you guys have a favorite show of the types that Honey Badger Radio does?
Generally the main show, but I wanted to say I quite enjoy the Rent Saga because there is usually a feminist or mainstream feminist influenced article or TV show that gets critiqued, and I quite enjoy that because that's my problem since I joined the men's rights movement. In the past, I just ignored these feminist articles, but when I joined the men's rights movement, they were linked and someone quoted from them, so I had to go and read the article, and I was so frustrated when I was reading it. And it's just nice to have other people go and critique it, and it's bringing some sanity to this craziness that you see there, and that's just nice to listen to.
Rant Circle.
I guess for me it's probably just the main show. I mean, I used to be quite fond of what was it used to be called the Nerdcast, or I don't know what it's called now. I know it's doing something. But I guess probably the main show because it's just. Well, I mean, there's the news and then there's the community, the family community side of it. Like, okay, here's all these serious issues that you wouldn't come across individually, so it brings them all together. But there's also, it's making light. You can either laugh or you can cry about it. At least it's almost like a family in a way, where okay, this is horrible, but hey, at least we can have a laugh about it. And I think that the humour particularly between Karen and maybe Alison, it turns a very dark thing into, you can learn about it, but at the same time you can enjoy it.
Right. All right. Just so you know, these days, the Nerdcast is called the Ermagerdcast, and they're pre-recorded, and we analyze films or media, and then we put like a men's rightsy lens on it and examine it from that perspective. Yeah. And we often try to make recommendations, or we try to analyze it in a way that the mainstream press has not. and sort of put a twist on, which we did with Zootopia and the Hateful Eight, for example. The Thursday show, the main show, we don't do news topics anymore. What we do is we choose a subject and we try to discuss the ideas.
With the, I mean, sorry to interrupt, but with the Nerdcast, I think that's probably why I went off it, because after you've watched a few of them, well, you already have once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. So once you've been given the lens to it, there's not much else. You see it by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Thursday show, we just try to discuss ideas or concepts. So we might look at something like, we had a show, what do we need feminism in the third world? Do we really? And then we brought people on, we challenged the idea to examine it. And then the show where we just do news items now is called the Polecat Cast, where we just pick up news and then we look at them. We might make fun of some of the articles. We might just read one and laugh at it because it's a feminist article and it's hilarious. But yeah, that's how we do it now. So we have the news articles in one show, ideas in another show, and then just nerdy stuff.
I saw
the Fireside Chat.
I saw the poll. Yeah, that's amazing. Very good, of course. That's always really with important people that were really useful to talk to. And the podcast, yeah, I saw the title and I couldn't understand what it was about. Mm-hmm. Good that you explained it.
Yes, the Polecat Cast is basically the news items now. It used to be BadgerPod Gamergate, but as Gamergate it's not dead, but it's not as prominent anymore. We just expanded to include any news items, any articles, anything that's happening, and we think that they're all better for it. So, but we are open to criticism. So that being said, if there was something that you would think that HBR could be improved by, what would that be? How could HBR improve?
All right. Well, I think I've said this both to you and Alison. One of the new things you've been doing is the not badger, where basically you take all the you take all of the funniest little clips and just add them all together and create shows of them. I think that could be improved in the sense in taking the cream of the crop. Basically doing what I guess Rooster Teeth do with the Rooster Teeth animated adventures, taking the cream of the crop of that, and the shortest ones that are only maybe a minute long, and just create it. It doesn't even have to be good animation. Just take that audio footage and animate it and make it individually. And the logic behind that is that the people on the internet have a very short attention span. Now, if you could create these little snippets, then the people who don't have enough attention span to watch a 40-minute video or a 2-hour video, some people just don't have time for that. But some people, if they watch a few of these little snippets, they might think, oh, well, that's the kind of sense of humour I'm interested in. Maybe I'll just give it a go. I think you could possibly get more views that way.